Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Buttercup here once again, and I'm back for some more of the Maxi Toys videos, and as usual, welcome back to more Let's Play of the forms of Mega Man and Bass, Mega Man's playthrough on this in particular game for the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom, or in this case, Game Boy Advance. And I'm still the toughest one of them all, from the likes of the Powerpuff Girls universe, including the likes of the Maxi Toys video channel, and yeah, that's what I can really say about this, honestly. So yeah, last time we have done 4 Robot Masters that we've done. Tango Man and also Magic Man, Astro Man, and finally Dynamo Man. Sorry for a little bit of attentions right there, and I do apologize for that, you know, awkward silence involved. That's only because I was drinking lots of drink recently, because today we're about to be hopefully trying to end this game off, because let me tell you, King's Fortress stages for Mega Man anyway will not fit well as it used to be compared to Bass, because as you can see right there at the very start of the forms of King Fortress Stage 1, we need to utilize the ice wall most of the time until you're able to actually bypass any sort of spikes. Because of that, much like in Bass's playthrough on this, I highly suggest you're able to actually rank up your extra lives as much as you can, probably up to like 9 of them. In case if you do have that enough, then you would able to actually just manage to able to complete for this particular level as much during time. But here's the thing though, is the fact that you might as well able to die most of the time anyway though, with Mega Man's playstyle anyway. Sure, you can able to actually just go ahead and just slide and all that stuff. But here's the thing though, is the fact that the level design does not even to work out as well as far as I was hoping it will be. But because of that though, you are going to die a lot. Especially with this section right there, is the fact that if you manage to able to get forced to able to actually get up from that specific maneuvering platform, turns out you might as well able to actually just go ahead and just automatically kill yourself basically. So although occasionally the enemies will be very generous with you to able to pick up more health pickups and stuff like that, but again it's all randomized most of the time, because even then, if you do know exactly if you want able to actually get as most of these items you want to desperately want to get, well, you have to able to actually just trying to go ahead and just trying to able to actually just well, good luck with that, because even then though, that again, that if you die several times with Mega Man, then your lives will be going back to 0, and then as a result, if you get a game over in the process, you have to do the entirety of the level again. And don't get me started on the forms of Mega Man's playthrough in King Fortress Stage 2, because you know the tank boss, especially with that King Plane, or for that matter, King Tank, King Plane, and you know the rest, will pretty much gonna have to guarantee that it just managed to drag a lot of it, which even then, you guys can clearly tell though the fact that this is definitely the most longest video in the entirety of the Mega Man Marathon series as of now. Because if you think that Mega Man 8 was longer than that, well, it turns out that Mega Man and Bass is a definition of the forms of one of the longest Let's Plays we've ever done for our marathon. And because of that though, we need to able to move on to the next game in the franchise by the forms of Mega Man 9. That way we can able to actually go ahead and finish up with the final 2 games right before when Mega Man 11 decided to able to come out, and during at some point in the 2nd of October. And speaking of which, you know how the fact that Mega Man 11 is going to be get its own demo until when it gets to next month and during September, which I might actually looking forward to that, especially noticeable this might be the first time we've ever going to be trying out the game, much like how it does in new forms of Kirby Star Allies, that the one game that we did manage to did done as a demo Let's Play of that particular game. And then I thought to myself I might as well do the exact same thing for Mega Man 11 in case if that demo comes out. So even then I'm still looking forward to it, and I'm really hoping that it'll do very very well, unlike in new forms of Mighty No. 9, it does like a very rushed job. So even then that maybe seems the case. So anyways though, I guess I should probably talk about this by the forms of the Diabolical King Fortress levels for Mega Man anyway. Yeah, as far as I've mentioned to you before, is the fact that yeah, King Fortress Stage 1 can be a little bit test of patience at times. Well, at least as far as I can usually just say about this, because even then, again, that, you have to be right on with your struts, timing jumps, and you know the rest of this particular points noticing. So even then though, that, well, you can probably expect at this point, so... In fact, this enemy took forever to kill, especially noticeable if you weren't able to actually deal so much damage. And because of that though, I just wasn't able to actually save up for some more of those weapon energy, like the forms of all 8 of those weapon energies as possible, because, again, unlike any forms of Mega Man 8, that, your checkpoint, if you manage to get, if you manage to able to die at certain points, and then your weapons will be still being depleted and all that stuff. Like, this wasn't exactly like Mega Man 8, because if you get it right for your first time or something like that, well, you basically gonna get yourself screwed over no matter what. So, if that's the point, then yeah, and as you can see, I've managed to able to change my upgrades a little bit, so that way I could able to actually disable the knockback occurrence, which even though thankfully that might be the case though, because much like how the ones in the forms of Mega Man 8, then I can simply just able to actually just go ahead and be fine without getting harmed by the knockback whatsoever. So, yeah, you guys, suggest. But even then, unlike in the forms of Mega Man 8, that normally you get yourselves your upgrade from the very get-go, rather than just keep on pausing the game and stuff like that. But unfortunately though, for Mega Man and Base, you have to purposely need to keep on pausing the game, and then you weren't able to actually just go ahead and keep on changing your upgrade system. So, that's a little bit tedious though, I will admit though, but apart from that though, as long as you know what you're doing, you should be alright. So, here we go with this particular Monkey A, alongside with this particular familiar contraption, which we'll get into that right about now. But unfortunately though, I might as well able to kill myself, because I don't think I can handle this particular boss with a little bit of health left. So again, that it always happens in the Mega Man Let's Plays like this, even especially myself included. I know some people seem to don't do that, but even then, no, that's just how I think it is, as far as my experiencing for those parts anyway, though. So, anyways, I've got 7/8 lives left, because, with the 0 lives count, means you still got 1 chance left. So, here we go with this particular boss fight yet again, but this time with Mega Man instead of Base. So, but again, as soon as when the boss is dead, you have to be sure you need to jump off the platform immediately in case that the boss is dead. Because even then though, for some reason, because of that, again, the developers of the game doesn't want to let the boss to explode when you're trying to die, or anything else relatable. But even then though, that you might end up in this huge risk and stuff like that, so... Anyways though. So I'm going to start talking about any forms of King Fortress Stage 2. King Fortress Stage 2, as far as you already know from the basis playthrough of the game, that we have to able to fight not 1, but 4 bosses in a row. I must have did that alright with Base, because even then though, because the game's design choice will be very, very well suited for Base. Because, Base is definitely the better pick of the two in my opinion. But we'll get to that in the very end of the video though, so... And of course, before we do that, yeah, again, if you keep on screwing over with your extra lives amounts, then I suggest you're able to actually just to pick up as many of those extra lives you can get. I would say the same thing for some of those upgrades you can get, but I don't know if I've got time left, or I don't feel like it. So, anyways though, for King Fortress Stage 2, for Mega Man's playthrough anyway, it's gonna be a pain in the bum. Now I know you're thinking, because of how the fact that the reason why we need to rank up extra lives up to 9 or 10, so yeah, don't expect that you might as well able to get a lot of game overs, because even then, if you get a game over, if you get to the middle point for level, you have to do the entire level over again, including, just trying to able to actually deal with the actual boss fights again, with the forms of, not only the forms of King Tank, but also King Plane, King, and Jet King Robo. I think that's where it's at. So, even then though, because of that though, I still managed to able to actually do this right. But actually, we do mean by several recording attempts and stuff like that. So, I think that's what I was going to be thinking of at the time. So, you can guys clearly tell the fact that this video is going to be as ridiculously long as far as the actual Mega Man Let's Play Marathon goes. And even in addition to the forms of how the fact that, well, Mega Man will have a hard time trying to able to actually deal with the forms of 4 bosses, and this level does not suit well at all for him, so even then I feel incredibly bad for Mega Man itself, so... But even then, though, aside from that, though, I do apologize for how the fact that the actual uploading schedules kind of get a little bit delayed recently because, well, if you probably did not know already, is the fact the matter is, I recently went into a summer vacation at some point. Well, mainly during a couple of days, because even then, although I did manage to come back with the forms of, with Blossom and Bubbles especially, that we did have a hell of a lot more time to able to actually enjoy the summer vacation. But even though it not takes place in the forms of the different countries or anything, it's just the actual, like, still takes place in the forms of United Kingdom, so, yeah. This is what Eddie does, by the way. I'm pretty sure I haven't really shown you guys about that, but I'm pretty sure I must have. But even then, what Eddie can do is the fact that he can able to actually regenerate your health, including your weapon energy, and sometimes it gives you, like, sometimes mini balls, which I will admit, though, is incredibly luck-based compared to how it does it in, Rush Heal item, is the fact that because of how the fact that in comparison to the likes of Mega Man 8, in the forms of Rush Heal, at least in that game, for Mega Man 8, they can able to regenerate your health as much as you wanted to. But that's not the case here, regrettably, which even then, that does feel a little bit more obnoxious if you ever think about it. So, yeah, don't expect it to see how this will turn out. And as you can tell, that since I've managed to get stuck into the forms of those stupid toy soldiers, well, as you can tell, my balls has been taken away. So even then, that's pretty obnoxious if you ever think about it for the time. So, here we go with probably is the most tedious boss fight in any Mega Man game I've ever played so far. Now it have to be, just King Tank, because, it just took a long amount of time to able to actually deal with him, especially with his weakness by the forms of remote mine. So even then, that because of that, though, it's just way too boring of a fight. But even then, because of how the fact the matter is, though, because of how the fact that, well, you guys should know the drill right there. Because even then, not to mention it only gives you like the forms of few shots with the forms of the remote mine. You also need to able to deal with like let's just say about 3 weak spots all in one unique combo with the forms of that specific King Tank. And I was just like, are you kidding me? That just took way too long. Especially noticeable how the fact that it also doesn't help how the fact the matter is, though, is the fact that sometimes King's Tank movements can take a long time until you're able to actually decide to deal with his attack. Because I swear to God, every time I was trying to able to actually get into this third and final weak spot, but then next thing happens is the fact that the King Tank will refuse to do that, and then instead they were just trying to able to keep me up, and then as a result of that tradition, then it just keeps going after me, and I was like, can we just get our weak spots, get it over with, please? Because I'm just getting sick of this particular, well, boss fight itself. And especially noticeable how it doesn't help how the fact that the music, well, I will say though is that this particular boss theme music is a bit too repetitive in my opinion, other than trying to able to actually just, well, trying to get these bosses finished and over with, because even then, it's just gone tedious as enough. But still, it's incredibly consistency right there. But even then though, that, yeah, that's so you can probably tell how the fact that with the actual time length, with the forms of the actual videos goes, then this is the perfect example how the fact that this particular game is going to be the longest Let's Play we've ever done in a Mega Man game so far. Well, at least until when we get to Mega Man 9 and 10, that things will get to a little bit more of a shorter time length or something like that. At least it all depends though, really, because even then, until we get to those two duology of games in the forms of the HD consoles or anything, on the forms of the Xbox Live Arcade, WiiWare, although it's no longer going to be there on the WiiWare because you can't get them anymore, which is kind of sad, and, well, PlayStation Network and Xbox Live Arcade. I think I've already said that, so, and also Steam version as well, so you can then know that, Well, you guys should probably already know as expected at this point. So, yeah, that's all I can really think about for the time. So, yeah, and also one thing I also did not like about this boss fight, it just took way too long, because even then, the reason why this boss took so long to able to deal the amount of damage with the forms of King's tank, that's only because of how the fact that the way he just maneuvers around, and as a result, it will be kind of luck-based though, because even then though, that he just loves to able to move all over the place. Even he does not refuse to able to let me try to attack him. So all he does, he just simply just able to maneuver around all over the place, and that's about it. It's not that pleasant of the boss itself. Jesus Christ. I know some people get a lot of trouble with this boss fight for their first time playing for this, even especially noticeable if they ever got the Game Boy Advance version, because I swear to God, with this screen crunch in comparison to how it does it in the forms of the Super Nintendo version, they can basically see everything, but I've somehow no longer have the Super Nintendo, the original console, or even the Super Famicom, if you will. But even then, I still managed to get myself my Super Nintendo Classic Mini of all things, but it's just how the fact of the matter is though, is that this boss is so tedious, and it's all about waiting game too, which even then though, that can get a lot of frustration, not to mention. And don't get me started on the forms of King Plane. Jesus Christ, where do I even begin with that particular boss fight? I mean, we'll get to that though after able to actually just keep on waiting most of the time, which even then though, that again, he just refused to able to actually open this darn door. If he would able to open this darn thing up, thank you. And I know the Mega Buster thing can do the amount of damage, but I don't think it can actually do as many damage as I thought it was going to be. But as a result of that addition, well, it just took like a really long time, and as a result, you're probably going to be spending on this boss fight for 7 minutes or so after hearing this ear-grating music, which I gotta admit though right away, I'm not a big fan of this particular music though, even especially on the Game Boy Advance version of the game, so there we go. Now this monstrosity is done. Well, at least for now anyway. Because we're about to be meet up against with the forms of King Tank when we get to the 3 bosses combined into one though, so oh boy. But on the plus side though, it might actually come towards something a little bit more differently than the likes of how it does it in Base's playthrough, because even then though, we'll get to that as soon as we get to that. So let's go ahead and fill ourselves the forms of although I did not meant to able to refill our lightning balls, but I can able to refill remote mine. I do apologize if I sounds a little bit too sniffy at the moment. That's only because of how the fact that the reason why this uploading schedule recently has gone a little bit delayed. From we haven't uploaded anything in the forms of 23rd of August, even though I've accidentally said that in the forms of yesterday's video, which is the forms of the 24th of August. But now today is the 25th of August, so hopefully we'll get these the last few games done, and yeah, things will able to come to the goods. So I should probably point things out right away. Also, is the fact that we would able to actually do a, let's just say, an extra video of the forms of the Mega Man Marathon. Now will have to be the discussion upon the fact that there are some other Mega Man games, technically speaking, 2 from the remakes, which we're probably not gonna tackle through, and another Mega Man and Base game that I've soon to able to discover that, but in forms of releasing only in Japan, only forms of the Bandai Wonder Swan, but in forms of in 1999, around a year later after releasing the original Mega Man and Base for the Super Famicom, ironically. But even then though, that probably we'll talk about more on that game as soon as we're able to actually get into the the extra video of the Mega Man Marathon, before we're able to actually close off the marathon, before we're able to actually get back into the Kirby series, and especially noticeable with the continuation on the current Let's Plays for the time, and you get the simple numbers. So, and I have no idea why, because I usually just manage to waste my time trying to able to keep on refueling my health and whatnot. So here's the worst boss from Mega Man anyway, when it comes to this game in particular, and now we have to deal with the forms of that stupid King Plane. Not to mention what this ear-grating music is still playing. But one thing I should probably notice right from the start though is the fact that the reason why these platforms are usually going a little bit closer to us this time is because if you ever play this game with base, normally those platforms will split apart, or spread apart I should say. But for Mega Man that's not the case, so even then though you can just simply go a little bit more easier with timing on its platforms or what have you. But again, the only things you do need to worry about though is the forms of, well, 4 things actually. It's the fact that, well, you need to able to constantly go onto platform to platform while going over bottomless pits and stuff like that. And also this fist attack, which is most able to destroy a set of amount of platforms, which if you play as Mega Man, this is a prime example of how the fact that a lot of people seem to get a little bit frustrated with this game. Is the fact that every time when the forms of the fist attack usually happens, every now and then, the fist attack will able to destroy those particular platforms, which in this Mega Man's case, he does not have a double jump unlike Base does. But even then though, he also doesn't help how the fact there was no rush jet and no super adapt or anything like that. So it just makes it incredibly, obnoxiously difficult than Base's playthrough, because even then, well, you still need to able to worry about the forms of that stupid laser when I keep on getting owned of it most of the time, which I swear I was trying to able to actually hit its, this laser core or anything like that, but it doesn't deal that much, damage for my liking. But, still, it's just way too, freaking difficult. But again, in order to actually win this boss fight though, although another thing is probably pointing out right away is the fact that when you know these little flashy capsules, as you can see right there, they're just always trying to able to disrupt my concentration on platforms, which even then though that, because it always tends to throws me off most of the time, so even then though that might seem the case, so. But anyways though, and yeah, again, the only way you can able to actually beat this thing is with Mega Man is that this thing decides not to use that stupid damn fist attack, because although luckily from my experience, overall, I've managed to able to actually do not come across into the forms of that stupid fist attack. Well, it usually just happens right away, by the way. Because even then though, that again, if you fall down to the pit below, you have to restart the entirety of the second segment all over again. And Jesus Christ, this boss can really drain a lot of extra lives quickly. Even when you're becoming like Mega Man like I do. But then, you know, it just wastes, I'm sorry I'm a little bit too patronizing by this point, folks, because even then, whatever you do, whatever you're trying to anticipate for this boss fight alone, please do not waste your time whenever you're trying to be impatient or what have you, because you have to keep things going before you're able to actually just go ahead and just move on to one platform to another, and then it just feels really bad design for a Mega Man game like this. I think that's probably the reason why a lot of people seem to actually prefer playing as Base in this game as opposed to Mega Man, because, well, we'll talk more now as soon as we get to the final thoughts of the actual game itself, when we actually finish up with the main adventure with the forms of Mega Man himself. So that was very, very close. I almost got hit by these stupid penguin enemies. But apart from that though, I should be alright for the most part though. Or else there's, those stupid little moving heads. They keep on going after me like nothing else, and speaking of such, I get eaten by the treasure. Or in this case, a bunch of treasure or something like that, so I could wish I can just potentially try to able to go ahead and, yeah, the only reason why we do need to use Ice Wall in the first place is because, well, if you want to able to use that in these specific strategy ways, then you must be sure you need to able to use the Ice Wall in very much in every single aspect for Mega Man's playthrough of the game, because without it, then you probably have to able to actually go ahead and backtrack for a bit, and able to actually grind for more weapon energy as much as you can, but then, you know, it just sort of happens. So, and again, if you ever get a game over onto that specific section, even especially noticeable with your lives is about to be reset into 3 or 2, then, well, again, you have to restart the entire level again, and this means the 2 bosses all over again, so yeah, that's what I can really say about this. Sorry for a little bit of awkwardness going on right there. Now, the thing is with Eddie, though, is the fact that sometimes he actually gives me some health pickups, or he can just potentially try to screw me over with these little, bold, stinky little things. Which, we'll get to that as soon as we're able to get to the final boss in the game, which is the forms of Dr. Wily, so Hopefully that might seem to not be the case though, regrettably. So, anyways though, let's go ahead and enter here and fight against with the king. Welcome, I never thought I would meet you here. I suppose that I have underestimated you. Who, me? But your journey will come to an end here. You should feel honored to be destroyed by the king. So yeah, you get the simple strategy, just like how it does in any forms of basis playthrough. The except a noticeable difference was though this time around though is the fact that you can now actually slide underneath by the forms of those X projectiles this time around though, which makes me feel grateful for that. And especially noticeable how the fact that, you know, normally Mega Man does not perform a double jump unlike base. So even then though, they have to like purposely try and able to jump at the exact right time, and even then, whenever it just starts to move up, this means you're able to actually just go ahead and slide. So even then though, again, same pattern as last time, so as long as you're able to deal with this, no problem. And as soon as you've done this 3 times, Proto Man appears like usual. I can handle this. It seems I have no other choice but to resort to extremes. Mega Man, stay back. I'll put my whole energy into the next shot. Wait. If you do that, you may overheat or explode. I own this guy, and now it's time to pay him back. Funny, but so very reckless. Big Bang Strike! This can't be. Proto Man, are you alright? Proto Man, let's execute now. Can you put your arm across for your shoulders? What are you doing? Are you going to waste your sacrifice? Or my sacrifice even? You must finish him for me. Enough. So yeah, the ultimate dialogue can be differently and what have you. So anyways though, I'm also able to actually go ahead and just manage to able to did this off screen, by the way. So that way I could able to actually use my energy saver, which this way it allows me to able to actually not waste any of those weapon energy. So even then though, think of like how it does in the forms of the energy saver from Mega Man 8 and energy balancer from Mega Man 6, and the forms of the the energy symbolizer by the forms of Mega Man 7. But hey, we've dealt with him no problem. You won? Why did you fight so hard for these beautiful humans? Robots are superior to humans. Superiority is not the point. Maybe, or maybe not. Just put me out of my misery. But before that, we better let him execute. That way he has a choice to be repaired. And there goes Proto Man yet again. Don't worry about him. I beamed him out of the castle. After all, I am the Lord of Robots. That means that I don't want to see our species destroyed. Sounds convenient to me. King, let's execute together. Dr. Light can heal your wound. That isn't possible. I explode if anyone but Dr. Wily tries to operate on me. Dr. Wily created you? Even Mega Man doesn't know that. King, what happened to you? Are your knowledge circuits damaged? Your enemy is right in front of you. I don't understand. Why do robots have to fight each other for the sake of humans? Piece of junk! I'll boost your brainwashing level. So, yeah, as you might expect it, that the king once again got brainwashed ever since in the basis playthrough. But, except this time around, though, we might actually come towards new forms of, well, a different mechanic in new forms of the actual boss fight itself, naturally, so there's King right here, all got brainwashed and stuff like that, just like how it does in basis playthrough, except the matter of difference is this time around there is the fact that, as you can see on the far left of the screen, that there's actually a platform attached to the wall. And this means that this is the only method that we can able to actually deal the damage of the forms of the Jet King Robo. And then the only weakness is the forms of the Mega Buster, because if you manage to time this thing well enough, then you would able to deal the amount of damage to the forms of the Jet Robo King. But here's the thing though with the forms of the Mega Buster, is that much like how it does in the forms of one of those boss fights you fight in Sonic Advance 2 in the forms of Sky Canyon, you cannot attack it, you cannot attack its, metal parts. You have to purposely try and able to actually just to be extremely precise, so that you can able to actually just go ahead and just take a Mega Buster charge shot, and then if you manage to able to time your shots well enough, and as you can tell, I've managed to get myself my, death on this particular part, because, well, you know, as you might expect it, I can't able to deal with this boss fight with a little bit of health left once again, so we'll try this again, shall we, for a second time's a charm. So, anyways though, honestly, I found this boss fight to be a lot harder with Mega Man, because as far as I've mentioned about this before, about the fact the matter is though, because you have to be extremely right on with that specific jump, and it's especially noticeable trying to able to release the shoot button at the same time, which that makes it a little bit more difficult than base's playthrough of the game, just because of how the fact that, well, usually for base, they can able to actually just to perform a dash maneuvering, and also just manage to jump at the same time, and that way you would able to actually just manage to jump higher enough until you're able to actually reach the king himself. But in Mega Man's case, you have to use the platform, and what makes it a little bit iffy about the platform, I will admit though right away, is that it feels a bit too difficult to able to hop into, especially you need to be extremely right on with that specific jump, because if you jump a little bit too late, or jump a little bit, you're probably not going to ride onto that particular platform, which even then, that just makes this boss fight a lot more tougher than the likes of base's playthrough of the game, because, well, as soon as you're able to actually just to concentrate on those stuff, so as soon as you do enough hits on the forms of the, well, the King Jet Robo or anything like that, then you would able to actually finish him off no problem, as much as you're able to actually time your shots, so, you should leave this place now. This place could explode at any moment. King, you must come with me. Of course, I'll leave this place too. But only after you go first. Yeah, just like how it does it for base, so yeah, you get the drill. He's gone. I wish I had a transportation system in me. Goodbye, Mega Man. Don't let other robots suffer my sad fate. I'm counting on you. So, yeah, that concludes that monstrosity of the level by the forms of King Fortress Stage 2. So even then though, that pretty much does it for that level. And I'm gonna tell you right off the bat though, I'm not gonna touch that level ever again. Or else if I want to do some live streams or something like that. So, but that's not gonna happen for this point, because even then though, we approached to the very end of the game, which even then though, we actually approached into King Fortress Stage 3. And as we expected, that we got ourselves a Robot Master rematches, and especially noticeable with these little obstacles we need to worry about. Now, you remember buddy forms of the basis playthrough of the game, that normally base can able to actually just to tackle through those obstacle courses no problem. However though, that could not be same applies for Mega Man, because, well, you know, without the rush adapters, or the super adapter if you will, this means that again, disappearing blocks will attempt to screw you over at the very beginning of the level, which after able to actually deal out the amount of damage that you might as well took by the forms of Cold Man first. So yeah, as you expected, we're going to be fighting against with Cold Man all the way up to the very end of well, Tango Man at the very end, before dealing with the forms of Dr. Wily of all things. even though that, according to the actual instruction manual, for those of you able to actually purchase this game from either the box condition or just the Nintendo Wii U Virtual Console version of the game, that apparently ever since in Mega Man 3, that Dr. Light managed able to call Dr. Wily, Dr. Wily, or, well, Dr. Wily, which even then, that could be same applies to how it does it in the instruction manual for the Game Boy Advance version of Mega Man and Bass apparently, because even then, I just don't know why they actually just managed able to do that, but it's kind of weird at first, I gotta admit though right away. So anyways, there goes Cold Man for the final time here, so we're not gonna see him for the likes of him ever again. So even then though, that until we get to Mega Man 9 and 10, that we'll get something completely different when it comes to Robot Master's, well, library of all things. Well, at least as far as I can usually just try to say about this here. Excuse me. Aside from that though, I guess there's not much else I can really say about this other than that, because even then, I'll get into my final thoughts of the actual game as soon as we're able to actually finish up the main, Mega Man playthrough on Mega Man and Bass, and because of that though, the reason why a lot of people seem to get a little bit more mixed reactions of the forms of this particular game. Sure, the graphics still looks very cool looking, especially on the Super Nintendo title originally on Japan, and especially on the Game Boy Advance as well, just because of how the fact that, well, despite the actual, you know, screen crunch issue, but even then though, because you can't clearly see what's on full screen or something like that, so you have to utilize the screen crunch limitations, which is kind of irritating, but still, it's usually how it happens to me though, so anywho though. So we got Astro Man for the final time for the forms of the Mega Man series as of now. So even then though, that I really don't know if he's going to be returning in the forms of Mega Man 11, but we'll see what happens there until when that time period goes. Which even then though, I don't know if I actually did say that in the forms of the basis playthrough of the game, but I'm sure they can able to actually just classify for saying that. So anyways though. And yeah, I can't believe how the fact of the matter is though, we've only got about like, I would say 7 days left actually, until when we get to the very end of August, and then until at some point when we get to September, we'll definitely come back into the most current Let's Plays we're going to be doing, including some new ones here and there as well, like the forms of returning going back into the forms of the Kirby series of games, but this time around there's the forms of Kirby's Epic Yarn for the Nintendo Wii. But I know you might be thinking about the fact that, what about Kirby Superstar Ultra for the Nintendo DS? Well, the truth is because I'm not exactly ready for that just yet. In this case, we're not exactly ready for that game just yet. Well, after able to actually finish up with Epic Yarn first, because, well, Kirby's Epic Yarn was definitely the most definition of one of the easiest, or actually the second easiest Kirby games I've ever played so far. At least it's because of how the fact that you don't die so many times, and the first easiest, or the number one easiest Kirby games in the lineup, and that will have to be the forms of, well, Kirby Star Allies for the Nintendo Switch, just because of how the fact that your lives has been stuck with you for almost an instant. So that's very cool all in all, just like how it does in Super Mario 3D Land and 3D World rather. So even then, this makes it a little bit more of a coolest factor about it. And as you can see, I always died on the forms of that specific Dynamo Man. I think Dynamo Man is one of the more difficult Robot Masters to deal with in my opinion, just because, well, no matter what though, every time you keep on hitting him at several points noticing, but then turns out that his health was about to be regenerated immediately after whenever his health is almost going to be going onto the halfway point of it. But even then though, that just feels a little bit too unfair for my liking, so yeah, that's what I can really think about for the time by the forms of the, well, as far as we already astonished the forms of, or actually accomplished rather, the forms of the Diabolical, you know, King Fortress Stage 2, because even then though, that level is simply hell, because even then though, I heard from several other YouTubers, mainly the forms of the actual stream, or in this case some streaming sessions that, well, some Call Me Johnny managed to able to actually did done, or the Super Gaming Brothers rather, they managed to able to actually did done Platform Mania during the last year, and they certainly did have a hard time with the forms of Mega Man and Bass, because again, if you actually died on the forms of certain bosses throughout, then, you know, you have to redo the entire level again, which even then, though, because it's way too tedious by the forms of King Fortress Stage 2. Well, that's not that much of a problem, I feel like, in King Fortress Stage 3, other than we have to deal with the most difficult platforming sections in the forms of the Mega Man series as far as this point in time, but still, it's just way too unfair sometimes for most people out there. So yeah, this is what I was talking about with the forms of. I found Dynamo Man is one of the more difficult robot masters in the game, in my opinion, just because he keeps regenerating his health every time when his health is about to be able to draining upon itself. Especially noticeable with the forms of this. I know his weakness is the forms of the copy vision, to be able to actually deal the insane amount of damage, but you have to be extremely fast and be more accurate at the same time too, especially if you don't able to waste all of your weapon energy, especially with the copy vision in mind. So if that's the case, then it just feels a little bit tough in my opinion. So it's a good thing I've managed to able to actually well, get rid of all of my weapon energy by the forms of the copy vision, because the next robot master we're going to be doing with the forms of the rematch incarnations is, as you might expect it, Pirate Man. So yeah, that's to be expected. So anywho though, I guess I should probably explain more stuff about the forms of how the fact that what's going on in the news updates and all that stuff. Well, to be more specifically, for those of you who still a part of the Brony fandom, well, recently that the UK version of the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic DVD series, so I put a little bit of attention right there, has recently announced that there's going to be some more DVDs coming out for it, like the forms of. The first one of the lineup is the forms of the complete Season 4 DVD, which I don't know if any, according to the Amazon website page, it doesn't say the complete series or Season 4 of the actual show itself, which, as far as I'm aware, the only bad thing about the forms of that particular compilation of that DVD is that it does say contains 13 episodes, and I was like, what about all 26 episodes? I mean, it wasn't that going to be that hard. But hey, at least Season 1 and Season 2 done it, right? So why cannot you be able to deal with the forms of Season 4 yet? Oh jeez. I'm not too critical about it, it's just that I just need to able to actually ask you guys about something about the fact that it needs to be fixed. See, even then though, you guys can clearly tell. And I believe that DVD compilation is going to be releasing until the 8th of October 2018, 3 days after the release of Super Mario Party from the Nintendo Switch. So, yeah, this is insane for the most part though, especially with, you know, between My Little Pony Friendship is Magic series, in addition to the ND-Cube Mario Party titles, they're always about to be releasing on the almost roughly the exact same time as each other, like the forms of some days, or most likely years especially. I mean, what's next? If they're going to be doing Season 9 next year, and then they're going to be releasing another new Mario Party game onto let's just say the Nintendo Switch or something like that, they'll just make it incredibly all over the place. I'm going to tell you that right now. Although it does say in the forms of, yeah, it only just showcases four number of discs. So I'm really hoping also that, or it's just the actual, like, I don't know, I just get confused at the moment. So here we go with Boner Man, aka probably the more difficult robot masters to deal with because he's way too unpredictable at times. And plus, he just really hurts you, like, so hard, which even then, though, that just only ticks me off most of the time, which even then, though, that just gets a lot bit more frustration, I'm gonna feel like, for that part, so. But I digress, and another DVD they did recently announced by the forms of the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic series, that will have to be a holiday or a Christmas special for once, but only in 2018's release. So even then, though, the Christmas special is known as the best gift ever. See, Fernando, can't wait to see how this particular special will actually plays out. See, Fernando, that I'm pretty sure that particular special will about to be releasing until at some point in the 5th of November 2018. See, Fernando, it's only for about 44 minutes, which is quite long considering how the fact that compared to the most of the episodes of the show, that normally runs about like 22 minutes. So that's very different for a change, especially with the actual like specials all by itself, because I know Doctor Who does that too. But even then though, that's because of how the fact that, well, especially if they're trying to be hosting the forms of Christmas specials and stuff like that, then sometimes most of the specials will go slightly longer than the rest. But even then, that can usually just makes me a lot of surprises there, so... Here's Magic Man right there, even then though that we actually in the halfway point of the forms of that particular Robot Master rematches so far. So even then though that, well, you'll be going down for good, Magic Man, even though the weakness is the forms of Tango Blade, so boom, he's now down for good. And let's go ahead and switch over to the forms of the magic card here in case if I need to get my health pickups, including the weapon energy for, let's just say for the magic card for the better. So even then though, because I don't know what it is though, because even then I found the magic card to be kind of a useful ability if you want to able to actually pick up more weapon energy, extra lives, or even especially with the health pickups as well. So yeah, that's to be expected. So God, I really hate just trying to able to guess which one of those invisible pitfalls is going to be located at. So even then though, because it feels incredibly similar to the likes of Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. But even then though, except the fact that you can able to actually use the holy water in order to actually just manage to let these, well, invisible pitfalls nowhere to be seen. So even then though, that, because of that though, the holy water in the forms of, you know, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest is pretty much unlimited compared to the first game. So even then though, that's to be expected too. So even then though, yeah. So, thankfully though, I can able to actually just manage to deal out with the forms of Groundman for the first time this time around though, so there's no need to able to kill ourselves immediately. So, there we go then. So now we got one more Robot Master left, and as you expect it is Tango Man, but first before we get into Tango Man, we need to able to come towards the forms of a whole bunch of obstacles we need to deal with right there, including enemies themselves. So... yeah, I'm really hoping there might be some health pickups here and there. Speaking of which, there's one here, and there's another one over there, but because of how the way these projectiles are a little bit more unpredictable to avoid sometimes, so yeah, that should be expected, so, and I did not meant to actually pick up more weapon energy, but in forms of the lightning bolts, which that's fine, because I will surely I can able to actually finish up with this game for good, and especially noticeable with Tango Man as you can see on screen, so I believe this might actually be the final time we're going to be seeing Tango Man for quite a long time, because even then though, that after that, then we're moving on to the next set of Robot Masters until we get to Mega Man 9, 10, and 11, so yeah, I probably should able to actually explain that how the fact of the matter is though, until we get to the very end of the marathon. Not only do we might actually discuss upon the forms of 2 remakes games, but there's also another Mega Man and base game, but only exclusive to Japan, in the forms of the Bandai Wonder Swan, which even then, we'll explain more on that as soon as when Knuckles managed to able to tackle through Mega Man 9, and Mega Man's gonna tackle through Mega Man 10. So, here we go, on to the final boss for a second time. Don, that king, how dare he disobey his maker? It is a good thing that Mega Man took care of him for me, and now I have regained control of my laboratory castle. Time to get back to my plan of world domination again. But first, I will personally annihilate Mega Man. Are you ready to be annihilated, Mega Man? Well, not exactly, but at least I can able to actually beat you for about like the 9th time in a row from Mega Man's perspective. Although, first things first, I need to kill myself because there's no way I can able to deal with you with a little bit of health. So, we'll just go ahead and just regenerate our health instantly. And, unlike any forms of how it does in Base's playthrough of the forms of, well, it's not so bad in the forms of Wily Machine. But when it comes to Wily Capsule, that, originally how the fact of the matter is though, with base, you can simply just manage to jump higher and what have you, at least if you be very accurate with your movements and stuff like that. Well, you normally have to be able to use the magic card. That's not the case this time around though, because even then though, in order to actually deal with, 2 alterations with the forms of how to deal with the weakness in the forms of Wily Capsule and stuff like that, but you have to basically use the Mega Buster. I think that's the only best strategy you can able to perform at. So, and as you can tell, I've managed to switch over to the forms of the magic card, but I think I get a feeling that because of how Mega Man does not jump higher enough compared to Base does, and as a result, I'll go ahead and deal with him with the Mega Buster itself instead. So because of that, though, it took a little bit of a long time to able to deal the amount of damage with Dr. Wily, especially noticeable whenever he decides to teleport all over the place. Like, sometimes can either go from top to bottom and stuff like that, but again, it's all quite random at times, which, even though that can get a lot of, like, some potentials going. So, oh Christ. So, for the most part, though, we have to use the charge shard right there, and I'm very glad that we actually at the very end of Mega Man and Base, because even then, though, that as a result of that addition, it's not that terrible of a game, it's not the worst game I've ever played, it's just it's way too difficult for some little, conspiracy, because even then, you know what the forms of how the fact that, well, we'll get to the final thoughts of it, it's just we get to the end credits and stuff like that, so, come on, Eddie, don't screw me up. Okay, good. You never screw me over. So, as a result, I'm actually able to equip myself the forms of the energy saver upgrade, and just in case if we don't waste any of our weapons energy. So, boom! There we go. That concludes Mega Man and Base for Mega Man's playthrough of the game. So, yeah, Dr. Y is managed to able to forgive Mega Man for the 9th time. So, even then, because Base, I won't consider Base to be counted by the forms of Dr. Wily's forgiveness, but I'm guessing because of how the fact that this might be the first time that Base managed to able to deal with Dr. Wily himself. So, not digress though. So the very end, or the ending to the forms of Mega Man's playthrough is the fact that Roll, and especially with the other gang, managed to able to glad to see Mega Man here is managed to accomplish his mission, but then Mega Man was still able to actually consider how the fact that, he still thinks about how King managed to get out safely, but then, spoiler warning, he managed to did. Well, we're not going to see him after this game, so does this really seems a little bit more, does it really matter for the most part? But I digress. So, overall, of my final thoughts of the forms of Mega Man and Base for the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom, for Japan only, and especially for the Game Boy Advance, I think this is, seem to say, I think this is the low point of the series in my opinion, just because of how the fact that, well, first of all, let's get into the positives. The soundtrack is very good, much like how it does it in any other Mega Man game, and especially noticeable with the visuals do look very, sounds great. Just like how it does in Mega Man 8, because, you know, the sprites are heavily borrowed from Mega Man 8, except it's on the Game Boy Advance or the Super Nintendo, so, you know. But, that's about it. Aside from that, the gameplay, well, the level design in this game can be downright broken at times, and even then, it just doesn't really help you how the fact the matter is, though, is this plays freaking mean. And if that wasn't bad enough, how the fact the matter is, though, is that Mega Man will have an absolutely miserable time in this game because his game design doesn't even start to work for him. I mean, Base is definitely the better character between the two, but even then, aside from that though, I don't have that much fun with this one, aside from the forms of the Base's abilities, which is very cool. I think it should probably be a Base game rather than a Mega Man game, but that's just to me. If you're looking for a hard time, by all means give this game a shot. You can get this on the Wii U Virtual Console. So, yeah, that's it for our Let's Play of Mega Man and Base for the Super Nintendo / Game Boy Advance, and I'm Buttercup here. And join us next time by the forms of the Mega Man Marathon selection of games. Next up, Knuckles the Echidna is gonna do Mega Man 9. So see you guys then, bye!